Bailey Junior Kuraiki.
Bailey Junior Kuraiki.
Bailey Kuraiki.
The country's youngest convicted killer.
Take his life like magic, their bars are split with plastic. South Auckland's where I'm from, so all your shit to me be tragic. I've seen it, been there, done that. We took them trips like Iraq.
On September 12, 2001, 6 teenagers ordered pizza to be delivered to their Papakura home in South Auckland, New Zealand. But the group wasn't only after a pizza that Wednesday night. In the years before Uber Eats and online ordering, they knew the pizza delivery driver would have cash and change on hand when they arrived. When Michael Choy arrived to deliver the pizza, he was lured down the driveway of the dimly lit house. As he came around the corner, the boys ambushed him and pushed him to the ground. They began to beat him with a baseball bat while the others stole the money out of Michael's pockets. But even after they had taken everything they could steal from Michael, they didn't stop their attack. They continued to beat Michael until he was unconscious and seriously injured. When emergency services finally arrived, Michael was transported to the hospital, where he later died of his injuries. Michael was 40 years old and was described as a kind and gentle man. He worked as an in-home caregiver for people with mental disabilities and was engaged to be married. The pizza delivery job actually provided a little cash that Michael was saving to put towards his wedding. Bailey Kuraiki Junior was the youngest of the group of killers. On the day Michael was murdered, he was just 12 years old, which made him New Zealand's youngest ever murderer. At the time of the murder, he was under the custody of Child, Youth and Family, or CIFs, as they were known at the time. From the age of 5, Bailey had been getting into trouble with his teachers and the authorities. Eventually, his parents admitted they had lost control of their boy, and with the encouragement of social services, they surrendered him to the custody of CIFs. In the 3 years before Michael's heinous murder, Bailey had been accused of beating and terrorizing other children. He hadn't attended school in more than a year either. He was meant to be at home that night with his caregivers, but had run away to meet up with his friends. According to Bailey's father, just 5 days earlier, Bailey had turned up at his house with a black eye and told his dad that he had been beaten by another child. When his father called CIFs, no one came out to get Bailey. Bailey Jr. was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 7 years in jail. In 2008, he was released 4 months early when the parole board determined he was at low risk of reoffending. However, within 1 year, Bailey was back before the courts, charged with breaching his parole after he assaulted his girlfriend.
Less than 10 months out of jail, Bailey Junior Kuraiki was back before a judge on a serious charge of assault. The 19-year-old was arrested at his OUTTA home at 3:30 Sunday morning for allegedly attacking his girlfriend. Only she didn't report it to police. She's not even cooperating with them. The incident was reported by an independent witness. In
2011, he was convicted of assault and domestic violence and sentenced to 14 months in jail. It's clear that Bailey was a troubled child from a broken home and difficult upbringing. When he was put into the custody of Child Protective Services, he was in need of counseling and support to overcome his trauma and integrate back into society. But instead, many opportunities to help this young man were missed and he fell through the cracks of the system. Bailey was ultimately left to fend for himself. He found a family in the company of gang members and violent criminals, as many young men do. Today we know that a child's brain doesn't fully develop its ability to comprehend decision-making and consequences until their early 20s. And if that child has a traumatic upbringing, there can be numerous negative effects on the development of the child's brain and coping skills. With all that said, an innocent life was still lost. And as for the 6 involved, their lives were forever changed. Bailey Jr. was sadly another example of how so many boys can wind up going down a negative path when left without proper guidance and emotional support. Y'all know what it is. Stay the fuck out of trouble.
Kim Workman, who campaigns on justice reform, has helped with Kuraiki's rehabilitation. Workman said Kuraiki's at the point now where he doesn't trust anybody.
When people are, submerged in publicity as he has been, their trust in the justice system deteriorates. And that also affects their trust in others that might be in a position to help.
Workman says prisoner rehab takes time, and the trick is not to give up on them.
Michael Choy's mother says his behaviour outside court shows Kurariki's not changed his ways.
I think he's a danger to the community. He can't control himself. He's never going to learn because they just let him off all the time. They need harsh punishments.